Hey everyone, this is Gritz from Eretz Yisrael. Thank you all for joining. It's amazing to think that there's people out there that are just getting home from school and they're starting their day at the night activities. Either they're going out or anything, but you're taking the time right now instead of watching actual Netflix and like catching up on all your shows. You're doing something meaningful and learning a little bit, and it's very nice to know that there's so many people who are interested. So also, if you have any comments, you could type under the YouTube chat that's on this page. So if you have any questions, try to save them a little bit towards the end. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. So we're gonna start. I was looking into topics, and then my rabbi gave me this book about tefillah, and I was like, wow, it opened my eyes. Like, Tefillah is meaningful to me, and it's not that it's boring or anything, and there are a lot of meaningful things in it, but like the way that this book explained all the different connections between the Seder, the order of the prayers, it's absolutely amazing. So I just wanted to bring that up in this share tonight. So we'll start with the chiyuv of davening. Where does the obligation to pray come from? So if you look in the Shema, it says in Dvarim Yud Aleph Yud Gimel. You say it every day in the Shema. It says. V'haya im shmo tishmeu al mitzvotai asher anochi mitzvatchem hayom lava et Hashem Elokechem b'chol levavchem, to serve Hashem with all your heart. Now, in the simple meaning, you might think that it means to serve Hashem like meaningfully, like to have a intention to serve Him and have a kavana, a intention to serve Him. But another interpretation that we know is that to love Hashem to serve Hashem with all your heart could also be referring to tefillah, and that's where we get the obligation to daven and to pray from the Torah. It says to serve Hashem with your heart, and what's the service of the heart? The service of the heart is through prayer. Now, in the Gemara and Tanis, that's where this idea is brought down, that with the heart means tefillah. And the Rambam, if you look in the sheet that I provided, he's the third source. He's about the third source in. So he says that this is where the mitzvah comes from also, and he's the authoritarian on what the mitzvahs throughout our lives are, and he says that this is where it comes from. Now, that's where the chiyuv comes from, where the obligation comes from. But now we have this idea of tefillah, that we're obligated to do it. Now, we know that there's 3 parts to tefillah, 3 times during the day: shacharis, mincha, and marv, morning, afternoon, and evening prayers. And the interesting ideas that I've learned about in preparing this year, it's just eye-opening. So let's start with brachos kaf vav base. So this is on the source sheet. This is brachos 26b. So in this, it says, where do we get this idea of 3 days, 3 times during the day that we daven? So one opinion holds that it's from the Avos, from Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and because Avraham, as it says in the Gemara, it says, let me find it. Okay, so it says, it's a little bit down in the page. It says, Idmar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Amar Tfilos Avos Tignon. We get the order of the day from the Avos, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he says that it's from the Karbonos, right? And where's the proof that it's from the Avos, from the fathers? It comes from the idea that Avraham davened in the mornings, shachars, and he quotes a pasuk, a verse, and then for Yitzchak he davened during the afternoon, and he quotes a pasuk. And so too with Yaakov, he quotes a pasuk that he davened at nighttime, right? So now it says later on that what's the support for this idea of it being instead of the sacrifices now? So there's two ideas, two sacrifices during the day. There's the shacharis and there's the mincha, right? So our idea of davening those two prayers is coming from the fact that we don't have the Beis Hamikdash anymore. We don't have the Holy Temple, and in order to replace that is through the prayers of our lips. And where do we get this source? This is from quotes Hoshea, who says that the lips are in place of the sacrifice, in place of the oxen that were sacrificed. So, Lamaisa, in our times, that's our way of doing the sacrifices instead, since we unfortunately don't have the Beis Hamikdash, but soon will. So the Rambam in Hilchos Tefillah, I think you have it on the sheet, it's one of the pictures, and he says that, so which one of these? Is it based on the fathers when we daven during the day, or is it because of the karbanos? So he says, not in that source exactly, but another spot, he says that it's based on the avos. But what's this idea of the karbanos, of the sacrifices? That's coming to teach that we know the times of the day, and like the setup of the day, like Shacharis is from this time in the morning until this time in the as the morning ends, and then Mincha is from this time to the next time, and then Mincha is and then Marv is from that time to another, and we get that from the Tamid offerings, from the sacrifices. When during the day those sacrifices were given. So now the Torah Shulchan Aruch and the Shulchan Aruch, they also share this idea. It's in the source sheets if you want to look at it. And it's very interesting that the Shulchan Aruch, which is on the sheet, I will tell you which one. It's right after, it's right before Brachos 12a. So a very interesting idea that it mentions in there, which is that we get this idea of the times, like the specific limits, the beginning and the end of the time you could daven Shacharis, Mincha, and Marv. And it teaches even more that you have to pray in a makom karbon, in a way, in a set place, like the karbon was in a set place. You have to velekach tzarich lezer shetei dugmot karbon bekavana. You have to be careful to have the right intentions while you're doing the davening. Just like during the karbanos, you have to have like specific intentions, and therefore you, if you had any below yarav ba machshavat acheres, if you have any other thoughts, it cancels out the sacrifice, and it also cancels out your davening. Other ideas that it includes is that you have to stand like you would when you would do the sacrifice in a set place, and you would have to and you you can't have anything in front of you like that's distracting you. Also, you can't have, because also with the carbon, you couldn't have anything like separating the sacrifice to the altar, and you should wear something very nice, because the Kohen who would do the sacrifices would wear something very, very nice. But we know that that outfit was very expensive. You don't have to spend $1 million on an outfit, but you have to be very nice pants, nice clothes, and be clean. Now let's continue. And as we're going, I just want to remind how this is going through. So we had the obligation of davening, where that came from, and then now we're going through the Seder Hayom, the order of the day, the order of what prayers we daven during the day. Now, the beautiful part of this is now we're going to get into the details of what's the difference between those? Why is it that what's different from Shacharis between and Mincha to Mariv and Mariv to Shacharis? What's the difference? And it's more on a philosophical level, not on the technical, but the philosophical idea, the hashkafic reasons for why they're different are clearly shown in what the texts actually say. So from the book that I'm reading, it's very interesting. So he quotes the rabbi. The book I'm reading is Rabbi Monk, and he's quoting someone named the Yavitz. And in his Siddur, he says that there's a very big difference between the morning and the evening. The morning is a time of the power of doing things is in the hands of man, in the sense that you have a lot of potential for the day. You have a lot of things that you could do, and you're excited to get to that. But and you're refreshed with a new strength, and you have a huge amount of excitement for the coming day. But at night, it's not in the power of man. It's more in the power of God, because at that time there's more uncertainty. There's more dependence on Hashem as a result, and therefore there's a stark difference between the two times. And this idea is actually brought down in the Gemara, because in Brachos Yud Beis, which I think we mentioned before, it says that I could tell you exactly where. So if you want to follow, in Brachos 12, page 12a, it says towards the bottom, Amar Rava Bar Chanina, Savar Mashmiya Derav Kol Shalo, Amar Emes V'Yetzev Shachris V'Emes V'Emuna Aris Lo Yotze Yedo Chavasa. So within the prayers of Shachris and Mariv, right after when you say the Shema, there's a paragraph. And if you look closely, there's a slight difference in that paragraph, because usually in the morning we say Emes V'Yetzev, which means that it's God's actions are true and consistent. Yetzev means consistent. And at night we say Emes Ve'amuna, which is his actions are true and we believe in them. They're faithful, right? Now, what's the nafkamina? What's the practical difference in that in terms of ways of thinking about the morning and the evening? So in the morning, if you look at the Rashi and Tosfos on this page in this area, it says that in the morning, it's more of a time of reflecting on the past Rahmanas, the past mercies of Hashem, like leaving Egypt, Yitzias Mitzrayim, and different things that God has done in the past. And at night, it's more about the future, because we believe Ve'amuna, that there's going to be more Rahmanas from Hashem. And in the morning we had we know for a fact that this is what Hashem did for us. And therefore we trust in that in the night that we're gonna have continued success because of him. And it's continually, this idea is brought down continually through the davening, because there's different ideas. By the morning, Gomel Chasadim, that he gives the chesed, but at night we say Shomer Mo Yisrael, that he'll protect us, because we trust that he'll continue to do so. And then in the morning we say Rabba, that he forever, that Rabba, he imparted on us a lot of chesed, which is more on the past. And at night we say Olam, Avas Olam, which means that forever, that he'll forever be giving us chesed, kindness. Now, this has a halacha l'maisa, in the sense that if you purposely don't say these paragraphs in the correct way or at all, then the Rambam in Hilkos Kriya Shema Pei Aleph Gimel, which should be on your sheet. So he says that you're still Yotzei, that Deraisa you're Yotzei of saying Kriya Shema, the mitzvah of saying Shema during the day at these time periods. You fulfilled your obligation from the Torah's perspective. But when the rabbis instilled these prayers and they put it on us to have to do it, we would not be fulfilling that obligation, because these are such central ideas to our davening, including during the Shachris and Mariv. And the Shulchan Aruch says that that it really you didn't do it in the best way at all. He repeats what the Rambam says, that you didn't do it in the best possible way of saying the Shema, because you didn't add on these essential ideas of the davening. Now, it gets a little more complicated, but I promise you it's going to be very, very powerful. So, back to this idea of the day being God being more merciful and being more kind, and the night being Midas Adin, which actually comes from the Kabbalah. So, that helps us in terms of the Shacharis, the morning, and the evening prayers, the Mariv prayer. But what about Mincha? So in order to do this, we have to look more into the idea of Avos, of the forefathers. Because if we look from that perspective, that Avos were the ones who instilled these prayers, and from them we learn these ideas. So we look at, let's say, Abraham, who imparted the Shacharis prayer. So we know that he, as we mentioned before, he prayed the Shacharis prayer, and therefore we do it also. So Avram, as a person, represents the midas chesed that God instills on us continuously. And this is because Avram is like a rising sun. Like in the morning, Shacharis, in early morning, the sun continues to rise, and it's beautiful and it's amazing, and there's so much potential. And Avram, so too, was not a hated person. He was very respected. He had a beautiful life, amazing life. But then we come to Yitzchak and Yaakov. And theirs is more midas adin. Why? Because once Shacharis ends, once that potential and the day is starting to fade away, the sun is not getting bigger, it's getting smaller now. So now it's more of a little bit of a different perspective that God has on us when he looks at our prayers. He looks at it more in midas adin, like a just judgment, not a judgment with chesed, with kindness involved, but more of it being more strict. So this is because the day is dimming, and by Yitzchak, so basically both Yitzchak and Yaakov are midas adin. It's a little bit of a harsher time, but what's the difference though? So we have to look at the difference between their lives. So Yitzchak, he descended from greatness. He had that amazing life. He was born in Avram's house. He lived there until he grew up. And he started in this amazing environment of Hashem and Torah and mitzvos. And it was just an amazing time. But then he had to leave. He had to go learn, and he had to, not that that's bad, but he grew up and had to run away because of his brother. And because of that, he had different trials in his life that continued to make his life harder and harder. There's different examples. We don't have so much time for that, but amazing examples of that. So, and therefore, there's not as much hope because the night is approaching. As the day is getting lighter, darker and darker, so too his life was getting a little harsher. Yaakov, he was born in a time of sorrow. So from the beginning, he had his brother Esav, who was was fighting with him from inside their mother. They were fighting, and his life was horrible from the beginning. But if you look at from the outside, the difference between these two is actually that Yitzchak, it's harder for someone to be born in a great environment and have to sink down to these hardships. It's actually harder, and that's why Yitzchak is really the midas adin. It's really the harsher time, that because the day is getting darker and darker, and also, but by Yaakov, he was born in the sorrows, but he continued to get greater and greater, right? And so too by the day, Mariv is during the nighttime, but you still have the hope and the trust that the morning will come. And therefore Yaakov's life was also like that. That it was originally bad, but then he continued to grow, and there's still hope, right? Now. So, Bekitzer, in summary for this idea, the Shacharis was more of a happiness, a gratitude. Hashem was so nice to Avram. Avram's life was great. And so too our Shacharis service is amazing, because by Shacharis we have all these Psukei Zimras, we have all these praises of Hashem. It's a little longer Shacharis, and the reason is because We have to praise Hashem for all these things, and also thank Him for all the potential that we have in the coming day because of all the needs that He's given us, being able to go to the bathroom, being able to see, and all of these things. And but my mincha, it's more of a earnest and self-reflection time. And what I mean by that is that we have nothing. We have much less prayers during that time. We just have the straight up Shmona Esrei. We just have the direct prayer to God in the Shmona Esrei, and there's no praises and there's no praises of the past that God has given us, and no ideas of the future of the praises that God has given us, that will give us, that we hope He gives us. And also, just technically speaking, mincha is in the middle of the day, and this idea also transfers over to like practically that we talk about who we are and what we're doing right now, even though we're in this time of like the middle of the workday. We're taking a break to talk to God, and therefore we're having a self-reflection. We're trying to fit ourselves back to what Hashem wants and what we want to accomplish in the day. Now, Mariv is more of a trust in Hashem because, again, like we mentioned before, the nighttime is a little harsher time in the sense that there's a lot of uncertainty. It's dark. You can't see that you're going to sleep. You have trust in Hashem that tomorrow will be another amazing day. So that's the idea that we have right here with the ideas of the differences and that the differences are brought down into the actual prayers and the way that they are formulated. And now for the ending, I know it was very technical. I'm sorry for that, but if you're able to follow it, the ideas mentioned are just amazing. Now, if you're still here, which I hope everyone is, there's the why daven, the question of why daven, because these details are amazing, but like everyone asks, like, why daven? What's the purpose of us davening besides for the obligation that God gives us to it? How can I relate to it? So we see this in multiple spots. It should be in your source sheet. It's 19 letters. That's what it's called, and it's quoted there. Let me find mine. So Rav Hirsch, this is an amazing sefer if you are able to buy it and read it. So he talks about the idea of tefillah, and he says that it's a stepping away from our daily lives. It's a pause in the day that we're able to refocus ourselves. We're able to realize the Hashem's ratzon, His will that He wants us to do, and we're able to endeavor. We're able to go in a journey in order to find how we fit into our relationship with God, with the world, and with a man, and with ourselves even. Next source. So it's not in the source sheet, but it's an amazing idea. So we think we're doing God a favor by davening. That's a common assumption that like it's so many prayers. It's every day. It's 3 times a day. It's so much, and God obligated me to do it. Yes, but like I don't feel like doing it. It doesn't connect to me so much because I don't understand it. And therefore I'm doing it because I'm giving God a favor, like as if like I have something to add to God, even though He told me that I should do this. So and also it's just a very hard thing to comprehend that God would want to listen to all these requests, that some things are very tiny, but there's actually a beautiful idea that I heard, that in reality it's not us doing a favor, it's to God. It's God giving us a favor, because the biggest chesed, the biggest kindness that Hashem has ever given us is the ability to daven. And what specifically, what idea is brought in the davening that shows this? It's every bracha that we make. Every bracha, it starts with a bracha ta Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, and it continues on with whatever the specific bracha is, blessing is. So specifically the word ata, right? Ata means you, right? So we say Baruch ata, blessed are you. You're the one that's the source of blessing, and we're speaking directly to Hashem. We are as if we're standing right in front of Him. Now, it's our ability to be speaking directly with Him that's just such a beautiful idea. because imagine you go up to whatever your opinions of whatever president we have, or we're unfortunately or fortunately going to have next. So imagine you walk into the president or the king's room, right? You walk in, right? You have a private meeting with them. You go up to them and you're like, how are you? Like specifically you, and like you ask questions and you say you, right? But the first thing that you say, let's say you say the question, how are you, right? And you say, how are you? Okay? You go in and you say that you're a one-on-one relationship in a sense. You're talking directly to them. But then if you look at the brachas, imagine that we're standing before Hashem. We say Baruch Atah. So we're standing right in front of Him. We're face to face. But then you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. Blessed are you, Hashem, the God, the God of everyone, the King of everyone. So it's as if you walk into the president's office, you say, how are you? And then you're like, whoa, I just realized I'm standing in front of the president. It's like, it's a step back. It's a realization of how you are, you're standing in front of such an amazing person, but even more so by God. Now, yeah. So now there's an even bigger idea. So we don't have so much time, so I'm going to skip one, the Chovos HaTalmidim. But the Kuzari, he also mentions this idea. We're almost done, don't worry. He says, you have it on the source sheet, that a righteous person's tongue is always careful, is always meaningful at what they say. And that prayer, he talks about prayer, tefillah, and he says that this segment of time, this tefillah time, is to him the most excellent and choicest time. It's his favorite time of the day, and he views all of the moments of his life. His entire life is in order for him to come to this time and during the day that he's able to approach Hashem and talk directly with Him, and it's amazing how it works. Two quick things, really quick. So the Eish Kodesh, he says, I'll finish with this idea. The Baruch Atah, the Atah, right? People ask, how do I hear what Hashem is telling me? How do I say that? How do I see or hear what Hashem is telling me? So we see this from the word Atah in every bracha, right? Because you want this individual personal message from Hashem to come to you, and God always, even though God through Nisim and everything talks to the Klal Yisrael in general, but to you, you want a specific message. So how do we see this from Atah? Because when you make your relationship, when you say Atah with true meaning, and you actually have this mindset that you are talking directly to Hashem, that you are completely focused, there's no distractions around you, but you're talking face to Hashem, then you see that you're directly talking to Him. And then God looks at that and He says, your relationship with me is that you are one-on-one with me, so too I will have a direct relationship with you. I will have Atah. I will talk to you Atah. I will talk to you. I will tell you directly what the answers are to your tefillahs, what you want to know, what your requests are. And I will have the same relationship that if you put that effort in, He'll put the same effort back to you. A quick story that was the basic idea of this shir, that if you have enough mindset that you're able to talk to Hashem as if you're talking to Him face to face, God will answer your prayers, and He will see the effort that you put in and put the exact same effort and even more back to you as soon as you put that effort in to approach Him. And the power of tefillah, the potential of tefillah, and the potential of a day like Shacharis, right? You're looking at the day ahead. It really comes from a quick story, which is that there was a mashal, a parable, that there was a guy in Yerushalayim. There's an old man. He worked as a shoemaker, and he was making a very meager living, very little money. And then the World War I came along, and no one was coming, and he wasn't able to fix shoes, right? So he had no money, and his family started to starve for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and on the third day, he was known for this on even when the times were good, and he always had a positive perspective that we don't need so much money. We're happy with what we are. We're the tachlis of this world is in order to prepare for the next. It's not money's not going to help you when you're dead. So when his family was starving on the third day and everyone was on the floor just starving and couldn't move, he brought himself enough strength to go out, and he usually went to the forest, and he went to the forest and he davened. And he davened for hours and hours, and he was saying to Hashem, please help us, please help your people, please help us all. And he faints eventually because he was so tired. And he eventually wakes up and he looks to his left, and he sees there's a flower. It was a beautiful smell that it woke him up. And he's like, this is a beautiful flower. And he goes and he takes this flower and he's like, let me at least bring it to my family so they can have a little smell in order to like give them a happier spirit. And he's on his way. And someone on a carriage comes along and he says, I'll buy this off of you for money. I'll buy you this flower. He says, no, just give me bread and I'll give you a bracha and I'll give you the flour for the bread, right? And he trades it for the bread, and he goes home and he feeds his family and everything's nice, right? But that night, his father comes to him in the dream and he explains, and when you were in that forest, when you were davening to Hashem with so much kavanah and so much intensity, you brought so much excitement to it, was so much stirring in the heavens because your prayers were shaking the wall that was between Klal Yisrael's prayers and Hashem, and it was breaking, and all the tefillos reached Hashem, and Hashem was ready to bring Mashiach, to bring the redemption. And so they prepared all the angels, and Hashem prepared, and they said, let him bring Mashiach. So they sent this flower, which was called the Tefillah Samesim, and what he was supposed to do, what you were supposed to do, my son, was to bring it to Marat HaMachpelah and all the fathers and the prophets, and wake everyone up, and even bring Mashiach himself. And you were able to do this. But while this was happening, Satan saw that, oh no, everything's over for us. Where Satan said, what am I going to do now? Mashiach's coming, the redemption's done, everything's going to be done. So he decides to trick this old man, and he comes and he tries to buy off the flower. And the guy ends up doing this. And because of that, he gave away this opportunity to bring Mashiach. He had so much potential. He was going to be able to bring Mashiach because the father was supposed to come to him in that dream that night. And he was supposed to tell him what to do with the flower. But he lost that potential because he sold it for a little piece of bread. Now, finishing up 1 minute. So the message of the story is, you look at this guy, you feel bad for him, right? He had all this potential, but he didn't know that he had this potential in his hand. He had the flower in his hand. He didn't know that it was able to do all this stuff. How much more so are all of us who know the power of tefillah, who know the power of what we are to do in this world, to serve Hashem. We have all this potential to daven, and we have all these things, all these mitzvahs, all these potentials in whatever we want to do in our lives and what we want to accomplish in our lives. And how much more so you should feel that if you're passing up on these potentials, on the potential to daven to Hashem, to get so many things out of it, to get so many things out of your NCSY experiences that you have, or being able to focus on what you want to accomplish, it's very important that you stay on track and keep to that potential, because you may feel bad for this guy who didn't know, but how much more so should you feel bad for you yourself if you know the potential you have and you're not using it? So my bracha to you is that you continue to go and you're able to use the power of prayer and understanding from the shir. And if you have any questions, I hope that you're able to bring this all Lamaisa into action and bring it into your lives. Now, about questions. So someone's going to message me the questions. If you have any questions, you could stay on. I know it went a little over, and I'm sorry about that, but I hope you guys enjoyed. And please let me know if you have any questions. If you want to stay on, we could stay for the questions, hopefully. So comment in the comment feed. Thank you so much, and have a great night.